This is beautiful. What is that, velvet?
Peace and love is the key.
You are now about to experience the J&J-Life Maat podcast with your host, Reya'Sekhmet.
But my name combines Rhea, which means a connection to Ra.
J&J-Life podcast.
Please smash that like button. Peace and love is the key. Hotep and Aakhu'Ra family, peace and love is the key. I'm Reya'Sekhmet, also known as Reyseki. Thank you for tuning into the J&J-Life podcast, where we talk about the stuff that really matters, like why our story, our family, and our culture are so important. I want to thank the ancestors and elders for all they have done and are doing. Peace to Baba Kabakamane, Baba Mfandishi Jahutimas, Baba Takal Kilimanjaro, and definitely Baba James Small. We have Baba sitting in the discussion coming from you from Aakhu'Ra studio here in Des Moines, Iowa. So guess what, family? We have a super cool guest today. Another one of our truth tellers from being a scholar and an influencer. Doctor of Engineering, Conscious Ingenuity Program Director, making animated shows that teach kids like me about our history and culture, and so much more. That's so awesome, right? So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome the visionary, highly respected Dr. Adwoa. Thank you, Dr. Maat, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sister, for inviting me. I was honored to receive an invitation to be featured on your platform, your powerful platform. And so thank you so much. So honored to be here. And I look forward to engaging with you and Baba Reya'Sekhmet.
Ashe.
How are you feeling today, Baba?
Well, thank you, Reya'Sekhmet. It's always a pleasure. And Hotep and Aakhu'Ra family, and I just want to say it's always a pleasure to be on the J&J-Life My podcast with you. Sometimes I get, to have the esteemed honor to be able to do this and watch you blossom and grow. And family, as we always do, before we get too far into this, I would like to give reverence to the ancestors and the elders for all they have done and are doing. And with that, we are beyond honored. We have Dr. Maat on the J&J-Life Maat podcast today. So and who, by the way, family, is such a phenomenal mind and spirit. And I need to say this, Dr. Maat, your presence here carries a weight of profound significance, for you are not just a scholar or an educator, at least to us, but a keeper of ancestral wisdom and a builder of bridges between the past and the future. I say this, because we follow your teachings and we watch your podcast, absorbing that wisdom and insights you generously share. And like most, we're learning as we go. And we're all the way in Iowa. So, your information have exceeded beyond whatever borders you may have, but just know that it's unlimited. It's infinite for us. So family, with that, I say today, you have a front row seat to sit in a master class as we open our minds and spirits to the gifts of Dr. Maat's wisdom, as well as walk this path of thought and discovery with a master teacher. It is with a deep respect and gratitude we welcome you here, Dr. Maat, to inspire not only us, but the generations listening who stand ready to take their rightful place in the story of our people.
Ashe, Baba Reya'Sekhmet. And I receive your words, and I'm humbled actually by your words, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your words. And sometimes, and I have these conversations with Baba and Wali Mubarudi, one of my jegnas. Sometimes, like when you're doing this work, and you're giving a lot, and it feels good when people pour back into you. When people, so you're pouring out a lot, and then
Absolutely.
just when folks affirm you with words and just affirm you, it kind of it rejuvenates you. And so I just want to say I thank you, Baba Reya'Sekhmet, for your words, because you definitely just filled my cup. Thank you so much. My spirit is smiling. Thank you.
Much respect.
Okay, so family, I've been thinking a lot about the stories we learn in school. Well, for me in homeschool are sometimes only part bigger of the picture. My nana says history is like a puzzle, and the more pieces you find, the clearer the picture gets. So, Dr. Maat, as I've been learning about how important it is to know where you come from and the stories you tell through Meltrek, and family Mel stands for melanin and Trek means for journey. And Dr. Maat, I learned that by watching one of your podcast episodes. I love how you blended those words together, and we'll talk more about Meltrek later in the discussion. But Dr. Maat, we know through our research that you are a native of Baltimore, Maryland, a U.S. Army veteran. Like my Baba, he was in the military. So I wanted to start by asking, will you share with the family a little about yourself and what you do so everyone listening understand what makes you and your work so special?
Absolutely. So I am a native of Baltimore County. So here in the state of Maryland, you have Baltimore City and then you have Baltimore County. I actually grew up in Baltimore County. My family, however, my grandmother, her house was in Baltimore City, and so I spent a lot of time, in the inner city, and of course you make friends with wherever you go as a kid. So a lot of my friends, I had friends in the city and also friends in the county, but I attended Baltimore County public schools. My mother, she was an educator. She retired. She worked for Baltimore City Public Schools for 35 years, and retired as assistant area executive. She went from a reading specialist to a full time. Well, she did reading specialist teacher. Then she went from that to assistant principal, then from assistant principal to principal. And so my mom was an educator, and my father, he was a Vietnam veteran, and he graduated from Morgan State with his degree in economics, and he worked for the juvenile detention. I think it was called Juvenile Detention Center. Or no, it was called Juvenile Services. I'm sorry. I'm thinking 40 something years ago. So he worked for Juvenile Services, and he was also and still is a community activist. So you put these two people together, right? Delano and Anna, okay? And then they birth me, right? I am an educator and I'm also a community activist. And so anyway, so grew up in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, attended Baltimore County public schools. Knew that I wanted to become a teacher. I love to educate. I love to learn and I love to educate. I didn't necessarily think that I would have been like a university professor. Like I didn't see that. I didn't see me being a university professor and making educational, children's educational content. But that's the path that I went down. So it was in the blood. It was in the blood. I always tell people, they say, why are you all who you are? You gotta look at the blood. And I look at my parents, and I am a product of them. But my mom didn't want me to teach. She wanted me to go into STEM. She actually, I remember I was getting ready to graduate from high school, and she came home with a magazine, and at that particular time, it listed the top 10 paying majors. And so in my household, it wasn't, I didn't have a choice whether or not I was going to college. It was, when you go to college, what are you majoring in? And so she brought home this magazine, and at the top of the magazine, at the top of the list, it said, computer engineering was the top paying major. So we're talking 1999. So I'm telling my age right now. We're talking 1999. I'm getting ready to graduate from high school. And she comes home, like I said, with this magazine list showing the top paying majors. And at the top of the list, it was computer engineering. And so, of course, she knew I was going to go for the top. I said, Ma, I could do computer engineering. I said, because engineering is just the application of math and science. And I'm good at math and science. I'm pretty good with math and science. And so she said, oh, I heard that Morgan State. So my mother knew what she was doing. I heard Morgan State University, they have a great engineering program. And at that particular time, Morgan had the number one engineering program in the United States under the leadership of Dr. Eugene Deloach. And at that particular time, Morgan was also known for graduating the highest number of female engineers. And so I remember my mom and I going to attending an open house that April of 1999. I was thoroughly impressed with the staff and with the students and with the facilities. And my mom was equally impressed. And so we decided that I would be attending Morgan. And so I ended up going to Morgan and majoring in electrical engineering, matriculating through that program for 4 years, graduated summa cum laude, got an opportunity, give thanks to Dr. Carl White, who saw something in me and said, I think you should enter this 5-year doctoral program. And so I ended up doing that and getting my DEng in engineering, and later going back to my alma mater to teach electrical and computer engineering. So that's my educational journey. Yes.
Beautiful.
When you were my age, did you already know you wanted to be an engineer and teach people about history?
No, not. How old are you?
I'm 8 years old.
Oh no, at 8, no. At 8 years old, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. That's what I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I didn't think I was going to, I didn't realize that I wanted to teach until I probably was about 19 or 20 years old. That I knew that was the path I wanted to go down, that I wanted to be an educator like my mom.
Ashe, Dr. Maat, I can't wait to hear more about how you've made learning history so fun and creative. It's like your parents and community gave you a secret treasure map to explore history, and you kept following it until you found a way to share what you discovered with others. That makes me think about how sometimes I get frustrated when I can't figure something out, like a hard math project. Did you ever feel frustrated when you were trying to achieve something big, and what did you do to push through it?
Did I ever get frustrated? Absolutely. When you try to achieve something big, absolutely, because with some of the things I desire to achieve, it required resources, and so sometimes I would get frustrated because I didn't have access to the resources to do what I wanted to do, and so. Again, that's where the frustration came from. It wasn't about the learning curve that came with me wanting to achieve things. It came with not having the resources at times to manifest, the things that I wanted to manifest. And so that's where my frustration, and I still get frustrated sometimes because it's like, you want to do so much but doing so much, it requires, and I know for what I want to do, it requires resources. And sometimes the resources just aren't available. And that is typically the most frustrating part. The desire's always there because I think that's just something that's in me. I want to create. I want to create what I call youth empowerment programs, right? Programs that target our youth, that will empower them culturally, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. And so the passion is there, but it's just sometimes the frustration comes when there aren't resources there that can support the passion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Maat, your story makes me think about how even the hard stuff like frustration isn't just something to get rid of. It's like every challenge is a piece of the path you're building towards something amazing, even if it doesn't feel that way at the time. I guess what I'm learning through the tough moments aren't just obstacles. They actually help you go stronger, like building muscles when you exercise. And look at what you've created now, Dr. Maat. It's like all those stepping stones came together into this really incredible bridge that connects people like me to the stories of our past.
Ashe, and you're right. It's I think the ancestors are speaking through you. I just had a conversation with
I say that as well.
Yeah, I just literally had a conversation with my Babalawo, Baba Sekou. Shout out to Baba Sekou out of Philly.
Shout out to Baba Sekou.
Yes, I had a conversation with him Monday, and I was, venting to him about some things, and I asked him to do a divination on my behalf, and he did. And the Odu Ifa that came out said exactly what you just said, that that sometimes what you're going through is just pushing you where you need to be. And I'm paraphrasing what the Odu Ifa said, what came out. But what came out was basically what you're saying, that these challenging times, these times that, you're frustrated or it's chaos around you, these are the things that are necessary to get you where you want to go or get you to where you need to be. And so it's crazy that now I'm on this platform. You're saying the same thing that literally the Bible Lau said to me on Monday. So absolutely, it's a necessary piece of the puzzle to get you where you need to go. Absolutely. And in life, anything that we do, it's not going to come, things aren't going to come easy.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people just expect things to come easy. And things aren't, things don't come easy. There are challenges, just trials and tribulations that come. I remember my pastor used to talk about, he had this concept called the stuff of life. We all as human beings are going to experience the stuff of life. But we got to understand that these things are necessary to get us to where we need to go or where we want to go.
Yeah, Ashe. So, Dr. Maat, what you really said hits home for me. It's like the work you're doing isn't just about facts on a paper or lessons in a classroom. It's about something alive, something that connects us all across time, right? And balancing this careful work of a scholar with the heart and soul of someone who's giving back to the community. It actually reminds me of Sankofa.
Yes, I
The whole idea of going back to get what's been left behind so that we can move forward stronger. You're not just building a bridge, it's more like you're creating a road that future generations can walk on. I say all that to say, how do you see the work you're doing inspiring the next generation, like Reya'Sekhmet, to carry the torch, to keep that fire burning in their unique ways?
You said, how do I see it, Baba?
Yeah. How do you see it, for the next generation, inspiring the next generation to carry that torch,
Absolutely.
to keep that fire burning?
No, absolutely. Well, first of all, one thing that, Reya'Sekhmet, she said a number of things that I could use to answer this question.
To do that.
Yeah, that I could use to answer this question. But she mentioned earlier, like the importance of knowing our story, knowing your story, knowing who you are, right? Knowing who you are and why you are who you are, right? So the importance of knowing our story. And so I think that the young people, you're saying, well, how do I see them, carrying this legacy on? I see them preserving, the integrity of our story, because right now you have people, they're trying to erase Black history. They're trying to erase Black African history as we speak. Like literally, I saw on the internet, it was a meme came across my feed and it said, National Park, removes Harriet Tubman, from the website. And I said, well, let me fact check this, because I know people will, just throw stories out there. But when I did fact check it, it's true. So they're trying to erase the legacy of Harriet Tubman. They're also trying to erase the legacy of Frederick Douglass. They're trying to erase the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. They're literally trying to erase our story. So it's important that we continue to make tools like Meltrek that tell our story to the next generation. So as they carry on, they can continue to tell our story. They can maintain our story, and also not only just maintain it, or not only just perpetuate it, but maintain the integrity of it, right? And so I see the young generation doing that, carrying that knowledge forth, protecting it and transmitting it to the next generation. We're talking about that, the continuity. Right now, I'm talking about the continuity of knowledge, right? The continuous continuity of knowledge. So I see the next generation doing that. I also see the next generation being unapologetically themselves, because once you know your story, you know who you are, then now you can be unapologetically yourself. So I see the next generation not only transmitting the knowledge, but then also being their authentic selves, right? And in being their authentic selves, I'm not just speaking about identity. I'm talking about also operating in their best interest. So not only just identifying as being Black or being Black African, but working in the best interest of Black African people. I see them doing that. That's what I see for the next generation.
Ashe. Dr. Maat, I don't know, Reya'Sekhmet. Dr. Maat be bringing that heat. You know, she fired up, ready to go, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you have to know how to love yourself first, because you know you come from greatness. You have to know your history.
I say,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And that is why they're trying to take it away. And I always tell young people, I don't need to know the history. The history, that's something in the past. Actually, no. That's that, people, in this culture, we are taught that we think linearly, right? So it's history, then it's the present, then it's the future. And African centered thought is more like a circle, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
all connected. We understand that history shapes the present and the present shapes the future. It's all connected. It's not disconnected. But and so you'll have younger people in this society say, I don't need to know my history. That's a thing of the past. That's a thing of the past. And I tell them, well, if history wasn't important, why would they try to erase it? Why would they try to change it if it was something that was unimportant? And then I also tell young folks this too. I said history will help you understand the world around you and why things are what they are, because you can go back into history. And I said, think about it like this. When you go to a doctor and the doctor's trying to diagnose what's wrong with you, when you're filling out your medical paperwork, they ask you about your medical history, your family history. When you want to make, investments, in a stock market, you're looking at the stock's history. When you want to invest in a company, you're looking at the company's what? History. History is very, very important, And so I just wanted to give some examples as to why, it's important, because young people say, oh, no, I don't need to know history. Yes, you do. You
Yeah.
absolutely do. It's a necessity. And I want to say this before I land my plane. We cannot depend on other people to teach us our history. We
Facts.
can't depend on other people. We have to teach our history. And I'm talking about starting in the household. That's something that should be in the household. And I always tell parents, if you don't know the history, there are plenty of tools, there are plenty of resources out there. Baba Mwalimu Barudi and Mama Ya Barudi, they have a class called Our Story. The
Mm-hmm.
Aakhu'Ra Academy, Baba Amin and Mama Nkoyo, they offer a class teaching, Black history. You have Meltrek, right? We have 3 films available. You also have, shout out to Baba Daryl Grayson in California, Kid Positive. He has Tell Me Who I Am. So it's different tools out there. And this is not to mention, if you go to Black bookstores, they have a bunch of books
Yeah.
that focuses on Black history. So if to parents who don't know the history, well enough to teach it in the household, there are plenty of tools out there to help you.
And we're not native of Iowa. My job moved us here, but it has been a culture shock because, you know, as you said, we have to do the teaching in the house, because when we go outside of our circumference, she is faced with all of that misinformation through miseducation, which is reason why she's homeschooled, along with a couple of our other grandkids as well. But what you said leads me right into what I want to ask you. And Reya'Sekhmet, I hope that I don't get out of order with this question, because I know you have a format, but it just prompts me, Dr. I've heard you say this on a couple of occasions, but I couldn't make the connection, only because when I hear it, I was wondering if you could explain how you draw the connection between Kemetic spirituality and science math, as I heard you mention it before in an interview or in a discussion. But by the time that it hit me, that video or that video clip moved up and something else popped in. And so I just want to know if you could, take a moment to kind of just, give us a little bit of background on how you make that connection.
I made that connection just understanding what science is, right? That what is science? When we think about science, what is science? Science, by definition, is the systematic study of the physical and natural world, right? That is what science is. And mathematics, we say, is the language of science, right? It's a method. Mathematics is a method, that we use to determine things, about the world, figure things out about the world. So it's a method. So you have science, which is a systematic study of the physical and natural world. And then you also have mathematics, which we say is the language of science, or it's a method to understand things, within the natural world, right? The physical and natural world. Well, then you got to define spirituality. Spirituality, and this is my definition, I don't is really your quality, right? Or your connection to the natural world, right? Spirituality. Some people think spirituality is just you sitting there. No, it's really about your quality, your quality, your connection, how you relate to the physical and natural world. But in order to relate to it, you have to understand it. Right? How do we understand it? You understand it through math. You understand it through science. So it's a connection there, between spirituality and mathematics. Mathematics and science, I would just say STEM, really. There's a spiritual connection there, because that is what spirituality is. It's your quality. It's your connection, how you relate to the things around you, right? But you have to understand the things around you, and we understand things around us through science, through mathematics. That's how we understand it. So it's a connection there. Now, let me say this. Mm-hmm. If you think about this, because traditional STEM education does not say, oh, it's a spiritual connection between, spirituality and STEM. They don't teach that.
Right.
But if you look at our ancestors, let's just look at Kemet. Mm-hmm. And let's look at, let's take, for example, the Great Pyramid. Okay. The Great Pyramid of Khufu. Mm-hmm. So engineers today would look at that and say, oh, my goodness, that's a great engineering project. I mean, look at the pyramid. Look at how many bricks or limestones they used to build it. And look at the orientation is orientated to, some celestial body. And look at, oh, my goodness, they use mathematics, and, they understood the circumference back then. And so you're looking at it from that. But to the people of Kemet, when they built that engineering was connected to their spiritual ideas. It was a connection between engineering. Engineering was a tool for them to express their spirituality. Think about that. Think about the oh my goodness, I know Dr. Baba Tony Browder is going to get me. I forgot if we were at Luxor or Karnak, but I believe it may have been Karnak, the Temple of Karnak. I got to go look, where we witnessed the solstice, the winter solstice. And during the solstice, whoever built this, the engineers, whoever built this temple, when the sun rises, during the solstice, the rays, the light rays shine through what they call the holies of holies, right? Mm-hmm. Which is where they say the spirit of the God dwells, right? So the light shines through it and it lights up the aisles. And I actually had the opportunity of seeing this back in 2021 with my son and with Mr. Tony Browder, who's also another one of my jegnas.
Peace to Baba Tony Browder.
Yes, Baba Tony Browder. And so I'm just sharing these examples. So somebody would say, oh, wow, look at the ingenuity of this, right? Mm-hmm. Look, this is a great engineering project. Or, oh my God. But engineering and mathematics were tools that they used to express their spiritual ideas. We got to think about that. Even the step pyramid. I mean, there were plenty of structures that were built in Kemet that today an engineer would go over there and say, oh my goodness, they would think about the STEM aspects, but they would totally ignore the spiritual aspects of these structures. And so there was a connection between STEM and spirituality. It was there in Kemet. And we lost that, in traditional STEM education. So I even been arguing that, there's a cultural connection between, there's a connection between culture and STEM, just like I said. And then, again, we know that spirituality is a part of one's culture. So it's a connection there. But traditional STEM education does not teach that, it's everything is objective, and it's but that is the point that I was trying to make, that there is a spiritual connection. There is a cultural connection there with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Ashe, Ashe, I appreciate you taking the time to blessing us with that explanation. Means a lot.
Ashe. Oh,
Ashe.
okay. So for my 8 to 12-year-olds in the room, before we move on, let me tell you a story that kind of reminds me of what we just talked about with Dr. Maat. Have you ever heard of the natural Auset? She's also
Yes.
known by the Greek term Isis. And in ancient Kemet, she was this amazing wise net who cared so much about her family and her people. There's this one story where her husband Asar was taken away and his body was broken into 14 pieces and scattered all over the land. But Auset didn't give up. She searched everywhere, putting the pieces back together, little by little, with so much love, patience, and care. When she finally completed her work, she didn't just bring Asar back to life. She also brought hope and healing to everyone around her. Dr. Maat's story feels a lot like that to me. Just like Auset's, she's taking all the pieces of our history that have been scattered or hidden, and she's putting them back together in a way that helps us remember who we are. And instead of bringing someone to life, she's bringing knowledge and pride to kids like us so we can grow stronger and smarter. So whenever you're feeling like something is too hard or that the pieces are missing, think about how powerful it is to keep going, just like Auset did. And remember, every little piece you find and put together can create something amazing, just like what Dr. Maat is doing with her work.
Ashe.
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 Ashe. Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You must have watched many videos of Baba Tony Browder. You know, we hear him talk about the Asarian drama a lot. So this is just our way of showing the family that Reya'Sekhmet is one who is really doing the work. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And I can hear it. I can hear it. I can see it in how she expresses herself in the examples that she utilizes. Like you said, she's actually studying and doing the work. So I'm actually honored that she watched Meltrek because
Yeah.
she's doing the work and she's doing, watching a lot of things. And so I'm honored that Meltrek is a part of her,
Yeah,
collection.
yeah. We're getting there. We're getting there. So she has a lot of when it comes to the Meltrek series. So yeah, I just wanted to say that real quickly that you're doing an amazing job.
Yes,
I
she
say to
is.
you.
I
Thank
shade
you.
you. I shade you, Reya'Sekhmet. I shade.
Okay, Dr. Maat, it's time for a question from the Sekhmet Zone. This is where I ask you a light question. Dr. Maat, you've inspired so many kids through your teachings. I imagine they're. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Okay, Dr. Ma, one of the coolest things about learning history is how full of surprises it is. There are so many fun and interesting stories that connect us to the past. As someone who spent so much time exploring and teaching Black history, I imagine you uncovered some really amazing things. I'm curious to know, which one of the most fun or surprising things you learned along the way?
Did you catch that?
Oh man, yeah, I caught that. I'm sitting over here because she's right. I'm trying to think, what did I learn? Because I learned so much. My journey started and we both mentioned Tony Browder. He was the one that woke me up. I always tell people he was the one that unlocked those mental chains when I was 15 years old. So I give thanks to him, thanks for him and for his work from the Browder File, Volume 1. That was the book I read at 15 and decided that he's the reason I have locks. Right? He's the reason why my hair is locked right now. And I went back to my mom and said, I want my hair to be natural. And she looked at me like, what? I want my perm to grow out. But that was because I read from the Browder Files. There's a section called The Politics of Hair. And I read that section and I was like, I don't want to perm my hair anymore, But anyway, it was so much I learned in that book. And then moving forward, there were different things that I learned about us and our story. Through so many great, historians like Dr. Ben and Dr. John Henry Clark. And
Ancestors.
the ancestors, reading things from, Mama Marimba Annie and Baba Baruti, and Walimu Baruti. So reading his work, reading works by Dr. Naeem Akbar, and Dr. Amos Wilson and Shikantai Jope. And I'm just trying to think, is there anything that I learned that like I was just like the most fascinating. I can't really I can't pinpoint a thing because it was just it's so much information out there um that I've learned and still need to learn, right? Because knowledge is infinite. Knowledge is
Yeah,
infinite. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's like the more I learn, the more I realize. The more I learn, the more I realize what I don't know. So it's like I'm learning, and then I'm like, wow, I didn't know that, and I'm learning. Okay, I didn't know that either. So as I'm learning information, I'm also seeing how much that I still need to learn, and so it again, it's nothing that I can pinpoint that was most interesting. I think it was all interesting. If you
Yeah,
ask me, it's not one thing that I could say this was most fascinating to me. I think that all of it's actually fascinating to me, and I always get excited just to keep on learning more about our story. About our story.
absolutely. Ashe, Ashe. And
I hope I didn't disappoint by not pointing out like pinpointing one thing because I think that it all is like fascinating and interesting.
I think that's a fair answer, right, Reya'Sekhmet?
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good explanation. I
Okay,
wasn't
okay,
expecting
okay, okay,
that.
okay, okay, okay.
So Dr. I've been thinking a lot about Meltrek. I love cartoons. I love how it's so cool to use animation and music to teach history. It sounds like such a fun way to learn. But I also know that making something like that must take a lot of work. My question is three parts. First,
Three-part question.
yep.
Oh, one question, three parts. Okay.
Uh-oh.
First, will you share with us what EdAnime is? Second, where did the idea for Meltrek come from? And third, what made you think this is how I'm going to help kids learn about their history?
Okay. Great questions. Great questions. So EdAnime Productions is the first company I started, right? And EdAnime is short for educational animation. And in my brain, I was thinking that okay, this could be a company that can create edutainment content. So
Mhm.
content that is both educational and entertaining for young children. And so um, I was actually my son Jalen. He is the inspiration for Meltrek. At the time that Meltrek was conceived, Jalen was like 3 years old, maybe 3 months shy of turning 4.
Your
And
uncle's name is Jalen. My son's name is Jalen.
oh, okay, yeah. And so Jay, he was 3 going on 4, and we noticed in our household that Jalen was he was addicted to mindless media. He never, it was just like he never asked about anything educational. It was, I want to watch Dragon Ball Z. I want to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I want to watch. And within my household, we all had a conversation about how he was addicted to mindless media. He was ingesting content that did not teach him anything. It was no knowledge, it was no sustenance. And nothing of substance was being taught to him via the media that he was ingesting. I mean, we always read books. We had the books, the story books, on Black history and things of that nature. But in terms of animations, he didn't have that. And so
Mhm.
we started looking for animations, and we found two animated films. Tell Me Who I Am by Kid Positive.
Mhm.
Well, I can't just say two. We found a couple of them. We found Our Friend Martin,
Mhm.
which the story of Dr. King is old. I think they need to redo it, but it's really good. I think they just need to redigitize it, but it's really
Yeah.
good. We found Alfred Martin, um, Tell Me Who I Am by Kid Positive. And there was another one, and I keep forgetting the name of it. In fact, my family and I, we were just trying to figure out the name of that particular animation a few years ago. A few weeks ago. But so then I said, well, we what we did find, I mean, we exposed Jalen to it, but we just said it's just not enough, right? Just him watching the same 3 films over and over again. It was like, okay, what other animated films can we watch? And we couldn't find any. And so I said, well, we'll create it. And my family looked at me like I was crazy. You're an engineer. What do you mean you're going to create an animation? I said,
Mhm.
well, engineers solve problems,
Yeah.
and this is a problem, right?
Facts.
And if I can sit and learn engineering, right? If I can learn engineering, if I can learn calculus, if I can learn physics, surely I can learn how to create an animated series, right? I know it's going to be a learning curve, but I'm up for the challenge. And so I got my family together, and that's what we did. We came up with Meltrek, and we came up with that's when we started working on Meltrek episode 1 actually. But I came up with the name because I was thinking, I said, I want something that means journey, right? Journey, like Star Trek, Star Trek, because I actually grew up on Star Trek, And so this Trek means journey. And so I said, I want something, but it's for black people. So I wanted to be Black Trek. What can I do? Melanin Trek, Meltrek. And so I ran that idea across to my family. They said, yeah, Melanin Trek, Melanin Journey. Okay, yeah, we can do that. So we came up with that, and then we started doing, the research, trying to figure out how do you develop characters, how do you storyboard, how do you write a script, can we need some animators? Where can we get animators from, to help us manifest this stuff? The first episode, man, I'm surprised people didn't complain about the sound quality. We recorded that literally in a microphone in a booth in my house. Didn't have any idea about recording a voiceover, just nothing, But we made it through. It was a learning curve for us. Yeah, and we made it through. But Meltrek episode 3, our viewers, and our supporters will see that we've grown exponentially. The voiceover was recorded in an actual studio with sound engineers and sound engineers. So we have sound quality, it sounds great. It was just Meltrek episode 3. You can really see that we've grown and that we've learned. And you actually see that with each film. So you kind of see Meltrek episode 1, you said they were amateurs trying to do it, but we did an okay job. Meltrek episode 2, we got better. And then now we're in Meltrek episode 3, and we're getting, better and better and better. My goal is actually to produce 8 Meltrek episodes. And so we're looking to start working on Meltrek episode 4. Once we secure more resources, we're going to start working on, Meltrek episode 4 and Meltrek episode 5.
Well, we definitely doing the best at doing our part by one. We did purchase, like I said, Meltrek 1 and 3.
Beautiful, thank you.
We got to get back to number 2, but had you not mentioned that, I would have never known. We would have never known. And I do want to say this, that even for adults, it could be a great refresher course to watch the Meltrek series, in addition to the children. And I guarantee you'll learn something because it was a refresher for myself. And Reya'Sekhmet and her cousins loved it. Matter of fact, they don't watch it multiple times, and she's teaching them. She's teaching them.
And it's the same episode.
Yeah, but sometimes people, children, your cousins need remedial education, meaning they need to have to do it a few times before it clicks and registers within them.
Yeah.
So,
right. I agree. I agree.
I say, Dr. Maat, go deeper, about Meltrek. This is that, the opportunity that we want to make sure that we, gave you that platform to
absolutely
heavily promote Meltrek, because we're going to do that for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so Meltrek episode 1, the objective of Meltrek episode 1, Exploring Ancient Africa, is to teach our children that our history does not begin with slavery and colonization. Typically, when that is taught to when our history is taught to our children, they tend to start it there. That's why I actually, and this is no dig at the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture in D.C. I actually enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw in the museum, but I did not like that our history started in 1441 when the Portuguese came into West Africa, West and West Central Africa. I didn't like that the story started there. But I get it, because then how did you get over here and become African American? That had to happen. But I wish that they would have gone back. I'm not saying that, that they have to have an entire floor devoted to African history, right? Because it's the African American Smithsonian Museum. I'm sorry, it's the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture, not the African or continental African history. But I wish that there was some exhibit there
Right.
on that first floor that showcased African history prior to enslavement, that conveyed, what African culture, was, what were the beliefs, what were the values, what were some of the achievements, prior to the Ma'afa, prior to the era of enslavement and colonization. Mama Remember Annie breaks our history down into three periods. She says the Ma'at, the Ma'afa, and the Sankofa. And she said, right now we're in the Sankofa era, right? So I wish they would have shown the Ma'at era. Like I said, it doesn't have to be an entire floor dedicated to it. But when you go down in that elevator, let's start with African people being the mothers and fathers of humanity. That they found the first fossils. All of the fossils, the fossil record confirms this. DNA confirms this. That the origins of humanity start in Africa. Let's start there, and then let's also talk about the different achievements of African people. Well, we had to learn and thrive and survive in our environment, right? So how do we do that? We had to understand nature. We had to understand how to create tools, technology that helped us survive and thrive in our environment. So, okay, we had the origin of humanity. We have their survival strategies. How did they survive? Then how did they begin to build their, what they say, nation states, or their ethnicities, or their civilizations? So now let's talk, like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge exhibit, but something that talks about African civilizations, great kingdoms. Then we can kind of move into the Ma'afa, and then that's, the Portuguese came in, and but they kind of just start our history with enslavement and colonization, and they do that also in the school system. I remember when we first released Meltrek episode 1, we were showing it in different schools in Baltimore and DC and Jersey. And I remember I would always ask the students, how many of you, before I showed them Meltrek, how many of you, when you were taught history, were taught that your history begins with slavery? All of the students raised their hand. Every last student raised his or her hand and said, yeah, that's where they start our slavery. I mean, that's where they begin our history. So the objective of Meltrek episode 1 is to let our children know that our history doesn't start there, that African people are the mothers and fathers of humanity, that we built great civilizations prior to our contact with Arabs and Europeans. We had thriving civilizations, so, and then also to be unashamed of your melanin. It's okay. Facts. It's okay to have you melanin. It's fine that you have color, right? That's blessing. That's a blessing. That is divine, and we get that across. Also in Meltrek episode 1, we wanted to connect kids to their ancestors, right? And to prop our ancestors up as models of excellence, and to say, if they achieve that, then you can achieve it, right? You just have to tap into those ancestral genetic memories, but you can do it too, and so that's why if you listen to Meltrek and some of the chants, if they can, we can, but you got to take it back, learn your history with me through Meltrek, let your minds evolve, take pride in who you are, to let the world see you stand tall. So we're trying to build their self-esteem, build their confidence, and let them know that your ancestors are models of excellence, and that if they achieve these things, you can achieve these things too. And so that was the objective of Meltrek episode 1. The objective of Meltrek episode 2, exploring the pre-Columbian Americas, was to teach children about the history of the Americas prior to the arrival of Christopher Columbus. And also to teach them who Columbus, who he really was. Right. Exactly. This wasn't a great person that they teach you in the school system. He discovered America and everything was great. No, he was an enslaver. He was a colonizer. He was a murderer, and so we shine light on that. That's who he was. And he didn't discover anything, I mean, well, maybe for European people because they didn't know about the New World, but there were already people, living in what we call the Americas, North America, Mesoamerica, South America, thousands. I'm talking about they go all the way back to 16,000 BCE. So thousands of years before Columbus was here, there were civilizations here. The indigenous people were here. And these were people who had color, right? These weren't, these were people who had color. And so we teach the students, the children or the viewers about that. They learn about the mound builders. What they call them, these cultures, they Hopewell and Mississippian. So the mound builders, they call them collectively the mound builders of North America. And there's even mounds, I think, down in Ohio. I want to say it's in Ohio. It's a big mound there still today. But you learn about the mound builders. Then we take you into Mesoamerica, where you learn about the Olmecs, Aztecs, and Mayans. Well, Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs. So you learn about them, and then we take you into South America, where you learn about the Incas. So you learn about these different cultures that existed in the Americas prior to the arrival of Christopher Columbus. And some of our scholars, like Dr. Ivan Van Sertimer, have argued that there was an African influence. Some people believe that the Olmecs were Africans. I mean, I'm just, we're waiting for, definitive proof. But you have scholars out there that will say that they believe that the Olmecs were an African civilization. You had Dr. Ivan Van Sertimer, who argued that there were a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities between the Olmecs and the Mayans and African civilizations. He also talked about how there was contact between African civilizations and the Olmecs and Mayans and all of that. So, a lot of our scholars are saying that there was contact there. And then people are using Christopher Columbus's own diary to say that obviously it was contact there, because they said it was African people on a ship that navigated them here. So, obviously, there was some contact. So anyway, Meltrek episode 2, it doesn't teach all of that, but it does highlight that the cultures of North America, Mesoamerica, and South America prior to the arrival of Christopher Columbus. And it does mention that there was a possible, that there was that possible African influence and contact with African civilizations prior to Columbus. So it does mention that. Meltrek episode 3 is actually going to be it's going to be a 3-part series. We just released Meltrek episode 3 part 1. The arrival of the Portuguese. Meltrek episode 3, exploring the Ma'afa part 1, the arrival of the Portuguese. And so this particular mini series within Meltrek is going to focus on the era of enslavement and colonization. And so in part 1, we talk about when the Portuguese came into West Africa, some of the Portuguese sailors that made it past the Cape Bojador to get down into the Guinea coast, because initially they couldn't get there. I don't want to give it away, but initially the Portuguese could not get into West Africa. It was one particular Portuguese explorer that figured out a way to get around Cape Bojador to get into West Africa. And I wish that he never did that, but that they stayed in Mauritania and Morocco, because that's where they were, or Quetta. But anyway, so it talks about that, right? And how what happened when they came into West Africa, and how, this particular episode destroys so many myths. Because one myth was that it's just African people just selling each other. They were just, selling each other. No, the Portuguese people admitted that they were raiding African villages. They admit that they were kidnapping African people up and down the coast. There are books that were written by. It's out there.
But that's not the information that they want to promote. They don't want us to wake up, right?
No,
they want us to stay asleep.
Exactly, exactly. And so it was. And so that, so anyway, we talk about that, right? We talk about the Portuguese coming into West Africa. What did they do? We show the dungeons. We show the dungeons in Cape Coast and Elmina. We also show where some of our ancestors took their last bath on the continent in Asimanso. So we show that. We show how our ancestors, we show the Kafu lines when our ancestors were marched from inland to the coast, from the interior to the coast. We show that. And we show them, how they got treated, and we couldn't show because we're targeting children. We couldn't show everything that we wanted to show,
Mhm.
but there were some things that were implied. I'll say that. That I think parents would catch, like, okay, this is what happened, but we didn't actually show it. We didn't want it to be too graphic for children, but we wanted to make sure that, that children understood how brutal the transatlantic kidnapping trade was.
Absolutely.
And so we had that. And then also, I'm trying to think, it was one more. Oh, but children are also exposed to in the Ma'afa, again, in the beginning, what was Africa like before the Ma'afa? And so we show a 2-minute clip that kind of goes through the history of Africa. The first man in one, emerged. Now, we show that. Then we say until the Ma'afa, and then we get into the Ma'afa. But at one point in the film, the children are then taken back, because one of the children says, well, what happened before before your village was raided? What happened? So he shows them how beautiful the village was. And so they do learn some pre-Ma'afan, I would say Ma'atian information. So some pre-Ma'afa things about African civilization. And they also learn African spirituality in this film. They learn about Orisha. They learn some Yoruba terms. They learn some Yoruba terms in Meltrek episode 3. They learn about an Orisha Rumila. So they learn some African spirituality.
Come on now.
And they learn about the concept of Sankofa. They learn about the concept of Iwa. Think about that. And I'm looking at the books that you're displaying. Asafo, right, a warrior's character and centered by Baba Mwalimu Baruti. Baba Baruti also wrote a book on Iwa, right? Iwa, and so and so we mentioned Iwa in Meltrek episode 3. So I think that out of all of the episodes, Meltrek episode 3 is my favorite. It is my absolute favorite one, because I think you just get everything. You get like, before the Ma'afa, you're learning African spirituality, you're learning, Sankofa concept, you're learning about Iwa, and you're learning about the Ma'afa. So it's just like, to me, it's like one of the best films that we produce, and also the best in terms of quality as well.
Ashe. And Dr. Maya, I know you had mentioned earlier on time. We just have a few questions.
Oh yeah, I'm good. We can rock and roll. We can rock and roll till 11:30. We can go to 90 minutes.
Okay. Well, you and again, Reya'Sekhmet, she be kicking me sometimes, Dr. Maat, like, this is my show, like, okay, but there's a couple of times, well, actually you say it continually. I've heard you say it on your episodes when you're doing your podcast. And help me out. I'm gonna try to say it. It's like a BBI, a BBI to me, a BBI, something.
No, I say a BB Fahodie. What did I say? What did I say?
Yeah.
I say a BB. I don't know. I say a BB. I say a BB to me, a BB Fahodie, a BB Wan.
Yeah. So basically, and I just butchered that, family. So but I just wanted to know, what is that language and what does that mean? Because that'll be very helpful to us as we continue to listen to your wisdom.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta salute a Bimfo. I'm oh my goodness, he's gonna get me. I'm looking right at him right now. A Bimfo Kambon. Oh, I know it's Obadeli Kambon. A Bimfo Obadeli Kambon, and he's a linguist, a brilliant linguist, and in Ghana. He actually he comes from a mighty warrior family in the States, and he repatriated to Ghana like several years ago, and he now works at the University of Ghana. He's an African linguist, serious brother, Abimfo Obadeli Kambon. You may be familiar with his father, Kamal Kambon. I don't know if you ever heard of Kamal Kambon, but Nana, because he did transition, Nana Kamal Kambon.
And the ancestor.
Yes. And he, so that is his father. That is his Baba. And serious warrior family. But he came up with the term a BB to me. And he told me a BB is black. So a BB to me is black power. You know,
Ah,
a BB to me is Black Power. So when you say a BB to me, you're saying Black Power.
a
And
BB to me.
I believe it. Ooh, he might get me. I want to say it's a con. He might get me. He might get me. I gotta look. I don't have my phone with me right now, but I think it may be. I don't think it's Yoruba. I don't think it's Yoruba. I gotta go back and see. But I know it's an indigenous. It comes from an indigenous West African language.
Okay.
So I gotta get back to you on exactly which one.
A BB
But
to
it
me.
a BB to me, a BB to me. That's Black Power. I actually heard Baba Nwalimu Baruti and Mama Ya Baruti. They would say a BB Fahodie,
Hmm.
a BB Fahodie, a BB Fahodie. And so but I believe that they got that from Nana Kamal Kamban and Abimfo Obadeli Kamban. I believe that. I'm not certain. So don't, like I said, don't quote me on it, where the
Absolutely.
use of it became. But a BB, when I say a BB to me, I got that directly from Abimfo Obadeli Kamban. And I asked him, I actually texted him and I said, I want to turn for Black excellence. And he said, a BB Wan, a BB Wan. And so I said, okay, because a BB is Black. So I
Hmm.
guess Wawan is excellent. And like I said, I could be butchering it. He's a linguist. So when he pronounces it, it sounds great coming out of his mouth. But
Hmm.
yes, so that's what I'm saying. When I say a BB to me, Black Power. When I say a BB Fahodie, when I say a BB to me, Black Power, a BB Fahodie, Black Liberation, a BB Wan, Black Excellence. I believe it's all coming from a con, but I'm not sure. I know that he and I did unpack that on one of my shows. And so if you go back and you just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Maat and type in Obinfo Kambon and look at, I think it was the latest one we did regarding the term Africa, because he was saying, he was arguing that we should no longer. He was saying that he would rather call ourselves Black than African, because he said right now on the continent you have Arabs there, you
Hmm.
have you have others there. I'll just say that, and they're calling themselves African at this point. So he's like, well, what would distinguish us from them? So he was saying that he would prefer the term Black at this point. So we were having that conversation. So towards the end, he actually breaks down what a BB Fahodie means. He breaks
Okay.
that down. So, so
We'll make
again,
sure we check that out.
yeah,
We'll
Yeah.
make sure we check that out.
he breaks it down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ashe. And I'm thank you for answering that question because it helps us keep our moral compass due north.
Okay, Ashe,
And
Ashe.
and and Dr. Ma'a, something that really stood out to me earlier is how much you care about helping kids like me understand who we are and where we come from. It's like you're not just teaching facts, but you're helping us see how history lives inside of us every day. And I heard about the Agoiie and Asafo training camps you run from my Baba, which sounds like a really another great way you help kids learn and grow. My question is, what kind of things do you teach at those camps, and how does it help kids feel proud of themselves?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful question. And I hope that one day you'll be a part of the Agoiie training camp here in Baltimore. If you come up and spend a week, because we have parents who literally come from, I have a parent coming from Minnesota this summer. We got parents from New Jersey, Minnesota, North Carolina, Georgia. They'll come up here, and Philadelphia. They'll come up and they'll kick it for a week in Baltimore while their child is going through the program for a week. And
Sounds like a
again,
plan.
yeah, and again, if the resources were there, it would be great to just house them, to be able to say, hey, if you want to participate, you get here, we have a facility, or we have a means of putting you here, in a comfortable space while your child is going through the program. We also have a bus that will pick them up, and so again, it's about the resources. But anyway, the Asafo training camp and in the Agoiie training camp, that the idea to manifest those camps, or what we conceived of those camps, that came about 3 years ago. Let me see. We're going into our fourth cycle of the Asafo camp training camp. So I think we did
And
2022,
there's an
23,
age
24.
limit, correct?
Yes, yes. I was getting ready to get into that. I'm trying to go back to when it was established. So we established the Asafo training camp in 2022.
Okay.
And Asafo, again, a con word for warrior, but a warrior training camp. I remember, again, my son Jalen's always the inspiration for my camps. So
Mhm.
Jalen started going through puberty. And I was looking around and he's been in camps, summer camps. A lot of them were STEM focused. But I noticed in Baltimore a lack of cultural enrichment camps, African centered cultural enrichment camps. There were none, for boys that were 12. They have rites of passage, African centered rites of passages, for grown men. But what about young 12-year-old boys, who are coming of age and they're going through that change of life? What cultural enrichment process or camps do we have, right, to nurture them through that? And so it wasn't one. So you know what I did, like I did with Meltrek. I said, well, I'll create it for them. And so I called Baba Fatiul, Baba Imhotep Fatiul, who is the leader of the PLM, the Pan African Liberation Movement. I called him up
Mhm.
and I was like, Baba, this is what I want to do. And Baba has, extensive experience running, programs like this. He's been doing work in Baltimore for 30 plus years. And so when I called him, he's like, yeah, I got it. Like he was just so cool, calm, and collect about it. I was sweating. It was like April. Baba, can we get something popping by June or July? He's like, yeah, we could do it. And he literally like got a budget together. He put the whole, like he literally put the whole program together. And I said, okay, Bobby, you put it together. I'll make sure I get the money to fund this stuff. And he said, okay, cool. So together we collaboratively created the Asafo training camp for young boys between the ages of 12 and 14.
Okay.
And so we focus on um, uh, character. We focus on life skills. We focus on self-defense. We focus on health, physical fitness. And you have the boys working with Babas. They're working with men, which is very important. I think
Very
that,
important.
yeah, iron sharpens iron. And so they're out there with men, day in and day out for 1 week and having, conversations with our young boys and also critical thinking. I think I forgot that. They're out there playing chess with the young boys and,
That's
and teaching them,
huge.
teaching them critical thinking skills, and having real conversations with them. And so it's a dynamic program. I would, employ everyone to get their children in the Asafo training camp. And so then I approached Baba last year and I said, well, we had the camp running for the guys. What about the females? What about the females? And so he ended up connecting me with a sister. Shout out to Mama Gina, a group of sisters. And we worked together to launch the Agoiie training camp. Mama Gina, she put, like I said, she put the whole thing together. She had so many ideas. She put a lot of this together. And we together manifested the Agoiie training camp. But she also has a lot of experience with developing youth programs, and so she actually puts that everything together. And the focus was the same for the girls. It was life skills, But the girls learned more so self defense, critical thinking. They also learned like home ec. How do you organize a household? They learned how to cook. We talked about hygiene. We talked about etiquette. How do you present and how do you present yourself in public, online and in person? What does it mean to present yourself, in a decent way, right? To be a decent woman. What does that look like? So we had a lot of conversations with our young girls. We learned sewing. How can you make clothes? You
Hmm.
love clothes. Can you make them? So our young girls, were introduced, and I'm thinking of some of the elders, some of the elder mamas that were on board, and they were teaching the young girls sewing techniques. And so they learned different things. So it was beautiful. It was just really a beautiful camp. Again, we're focusing on young girls between 12 and 14. And so if someone is, I think all parents should be getting their children in these sort of camps, especially right now while they're here, because these initiatives, because they are unsupported.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're here and then sometimes they're gone. And so
Yeah.
you don't want to I just noticed with some of our people, we'll wait. Oh, I'll do it next year. I'll get my child in the year after. And then if the initiative isn't being supported, then it's gone. And then your child didn't have the opportunity to experience it, once it's there. So my goal right now is I'm looking for ways to sustain these camps so that we won't have this issue, but nothing's guaranteed. So I always tell folks, make sure that you get your children enrolled in these camps. Also, the UACI STEM camp. The UACI STEM camp, that is a collaboration between the Aakhu'Ra Academy and Conscious Ingenuity. Each summer, we work with students virtually for 2 weeks. And this is for students between the ages of 8 to 17, right?
Nope. We got one. We got one right here.
Look, 8 to 17. And so we work with the students. We work with them from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it's only a half a day. You're not online all day. So they log on with us for a few hours and we expose them to African history, coding, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So they get exposed to those sort of things. We send them out a STEM kit. So all they need is a laptop. And even if they don't have a laptop, if parents reach out to me and say, Dr. Maat, I don't have a laptop for my child, we literally mail laptops, to our participants if they don't have them. So we mail you out the laptop. We mail you out the STEM kit. You also get a cool UACI summer STEM camp t-shirt, and you have a good time. You're online with me. You're online with a bunch of instructors who look like, our demographic, learning about, like I said, coding, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning. They're also learning about what we call African STEM history. They're learning about that, meaning they're learning about the achievements of our people in STEM. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful camp. We have a partnership with Morgan State University's CAP Center, and that is a center that focuses on cybersecurity research. And so they're one of our biggest sponsors. This year, we're also being sponsored by a research center called Seamless, which is artificial intelligence research center at Morgan State University. So we're forming partnerships with these centers. So guess what? One day, if any of our students say, I want to go to Morgan and I want to learn about cybersecurity. I want to major in cybersecurity. I want to major in artificial intelligence. We're actually creating a pipeline from our camp to these research centers, and so again, anybody that's interested in these programs, they can go to consciousingenuity.org, and you will have access to all of the programs I mentioned. You'll see the UACI STEM camp. You'll see the Agoiie, the Asafo. You'll also see Conscious Ingenuity, which is a year-round program, but that's more of a physical program year-round. We go into schools in Baltimore City and Harford County to teach STEM year-round and also during the summer. But if you go to consciousingenuity.org, not .com, .org, you'll have access to you'll be able to access all of the programs that I described.
Okay. And just for clarity, the UACI STEM camp is virtual and the minimum age is 8 years old.
Yes.
Okay. And for the 8-year-olds, what level of understanding and skill do they or should they have when signing up for the program? I mean,
we assume that you don't know anything when you
Okay.
walk through the door. So we're not assuming that you have a background in coding or STEM. You can, as long as you are an 8th grader and that's capable of learning, you can walk, you can join us.
Okay.
You can join us. Absolutely.
Thanks for the clarity.
No problem.
You've done so much to inspire and empower others with your work, but every great leader and visionary often has their own resources of inspiration. Who would you say are the people, whether from history or personal life or your field of work, who have influenced you on this incredible journey or path you're on today?
So many. I mean, I think that's a great question. Reya'Sekhmet. I think it's a great question. So many people influence me, I mean, I think of Myrtle Bailey, my father's mother. So that's my paternal grandmother. I'm thinking about my maternal grandmother, Evelina McFadden. Well, my whole village. So I would say my family. I would also say my community, right? So I'm thinking about all of my university professors who poured into me. I grew up in the church. And so I'm thinking of, the former pastor who's now an ancestor, Dr. Reverend Samuel Ray. And I'm thinking about all of those people, those elders when I was a kid that poured into me. It's so many of them. I'm thinking about days that I went to the rec center with my father, Dr. Martin Luther King Rec Center in Baltimore City. The people there who poured into me, people who poured into me throughout my educational journey, not just Morgan State University. I'm thinking about different sheroes and heroes, your Harriet Tubmans, your Nat Turners, your Gabriel Prosser's, your Dr. Kings and Malcolm X, and then the great African thinkers, Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. Jacob Carruthers and Dr. Asa Hilliard and Nana Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Patricia Newton. It's so many people who have molded and shaped me to be who I am. I will be remiss if I tried to pinpoint, a particular segment. It's so many people that have poured into me. Baba Mwali Mubarudi, Tony Browder, Professor James Small, Dr. Kaba Kamene. It's so many. Dr. James McIntosh from out of New York. So many people. Baba Imhotep Fadiu, even him. Baba Amin. I'm thinking about Brother Unc West. It's so many people. That again, I would be remiss if I tried to.
It's almost like it's a loaded question, right?
It
you don't
is.
want to leave nobody out.
I don't want to leave nobody out because everybody played a part in molding me to be who I am and helping me along this journey.
Yeah.
The people are countless. The people are countless.
Absolutely.
Dr. Ma, I've been thinking a lot about how young leaders like myself can make a difference, especially here in Iowa. Did you know that Black people only make up 4% of the state's total population? That's a pretty small number, right?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it can feel like we don't have a big voice when it comes to making change. My question is, what's one way I or other kids like me can bring awareness to things that matter to us? Basically, how can I inspire other kids to start their own journeys of self-discovery, even in a place where there aren't a lot of people who look like me?
Well, I'm thinking right now, doing what you're doing right now, being who you are and letting your light shine, Reya'Sekhmet, doing exactly what you're doing, building your platform. Because your platform, right? Your platform is reaching young people. Think about it. I'm in Baltimore, you all are in Iowa, and you're like, yeah, I watch your content, and so keep continuing to do what you do, and that is build your platform. Just keep on doing what you're doing and continuing to be a light. I don't want to start singing that song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. But that's what came to mind. Continuing to be that light and letting that light shine. And I think that's how you can inspire children, by just keep on being a light that they can see, right? A light that they can see, not even just online, when you're navigating your family and your family spaces, being a light, being a shining example of African excellence, right? When you're in your peer group, being a light, being a shining example of African excellence, right? So wherever you go, being a light and a shining example of African excellence, not doing what everybody else is doing, Reya'Sekhmet, right? Not doing what everybody else is doing. I tell my son that all the time. It's easy to roll with the herd. It's easy to move with the herd and do what everybody else is doing. If you want to inspire somebody, be a light and a shining example. Don't go with the herd. Be yourself. And I'm thinking about my Uncle Melvin, Bishmi Rahim. He used to always say, be yourself. He used to echo that to me 3 times. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. So my answer to your question, how you can inspire young people, keep being a light that they can see, a light that is a shining example of Black African excellence.
Dr. Maat, that really hit the
Ashe.
spot in my heart. Thank you so much.
No
And Dr.
problem,
Maat, I
Ashe.
also love your name. Will you share with the family about your unique name and what it means or what it means to you and how the name Dr. Oya Adwoa Maat came to be?
Yes.
And
So-
are we saying it correctly?
Yeah, Adwoa.
Edwa.
Adwoa. That's Ghanaian for born on a Monday. I was born on a Monday. And that's the tradition over there in the Akan, that they name you based on the days of the week, right? And so I was born on a Monday. So some people say Adwoa, is born on a Monday. So born on a Monday, but my name kind of came in pieces. So at first, when I came out, it was Dr. Maat, right? It was just Dr. Maat, Dr. Maat, Dr. Maat. And then I remember there was a brother. I was on the Armor Raw squad with him. I'm thinking about brother Agoiie. And Agoiie said, man, he's like, when you come out, he said on stage and you start teaching, he said, you come with that spirit of Oya. He kept saying, you come with that spirit of Oya. She was a warrior. And I said, oh man, she's a warrior goddess. Oya. Okay. I like that. Dr. Oya Maat. And then I met somebody else who was from Ghana, and they were talking about how they give you a name based on the 7, the 7 days of the week, and that was Adwoa. So I said, okay, Dr. Oya Adwoa Maat. So a warrior god is born on a Monday who stands on the principles of Maat, and I said, there it is. But then I went and got 2 divinations and found out that Obatala actually claimed my head. So I'm really Obatala. But I didn't get my Odu Ifa for my life because I was also told that you can have 2 Orishas, but I haven't discovered that yet. So right now, Obatala has claimed my head. So I'm actually Omo Obatala, but I'm not changing it from like Dr. Oya Adwoa Maat to Dr. Obatala. I'm not doing that. But I actually found out from 2 different Babalawo that they were like, you're really Obatala. you're not Oya. So but I mean, who knows what the future will hold, what future divinations will say. But that is my name.
Undoubtedly. Ashe.
Ashe.
So Dr. Maat, is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you want to talk about? And is there anything coming up for you in the near future that the family should know about? Speaking engagements, community practices, travel, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I do, and maybe we can do a part 2 to this, I want to talk about the importance of controlling and the importance of shaping our consciousness, and controlling the mechanisms that shape consciousness. I think that that's a very important conversation to have with young people, understanding the things that influence our consciousness, and understanding how to protect and how to guard ourselves from things that are going to shape our consciousness to to function in a way that does not serve us, right? As a people. So I think that that's a very good conversation, and getting, and talk about like media, and that's why media like Meltrek is very important. So I would love to come back and we have a conversation about media and how it shapes our consciousness, and just have a conversation with young people about the music that they listen to, the books, the films that they watch, definitely social media. Let's have that conversation and how social media impacts young people, and I would love to come back and talk about some things like that. But other than that, I think that we covered a great deal in 90 minutes. I thoroughly enjoyed the questions. I thoroughly enjoyed our dialogue, and just again honored to be a guest on this wonderful platform. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's good to know and comforting, as you saw her expression of gratitude and happiness. And how can one get a hold of you if they have questions, want to purchase Meltrek videos, books, or just want to connect? Also, do you have a way for the family to show their appreciation and or donate, or some way for the family to support?
Absolutely. And so if you're interested, anyone who's interested in purchasing Meltrek, please go to meltrek365.com. to purchase Meltrek books and Meltrek films. We're actually in the process of producing a curriculum, making the curriculum available for purchase. And so that will be, made available. And so you can go to meltrek365.com, but they'll be made available soon. Also, if you're interested in any of the programs that I mentioned, go to consciousingenuity.org. People can reach me at dr.maat.msu@gmail.com. So that's dr.maat.msu@gmail.com. If anyone wants to donate to me, they can send me money via Cash App. My Cash App is $ DRMAAT02. So basically $ Dr. Maat 02. And that is how, you can support me, and just put something, in the heading like for, donation for work or something like that. So I'll know exactly what the money should be used for.
And we'll make sure that we have your information, whether it's embedded in this video or in the description in the YouTube video, and however we promote it, we'll make sure that we have all your information that you provided in those descriptions, so that the family can see that and, show you some love.
Dr.
Beautiful.
Maat,
Thank you so much.
Dr. Maat,
Yes, ma'am.
are there any current authors or scholars whose work you follow and find influential? And do you have any books or resources you would like to recommend to the family?
So you said, are there? Say that to me. Ask me that one more time.
All right. Whose work you follow and find influential? And do you have any books or resources you would like to recommend to the family?
It's so many. He said, whose work do
Another
I
loaded
follow?
question.
It is another loaded question. I mean, I'm looking at two awesome references that you have in front of you. So the work of Baba Mwalimu Baruti, the work of Baba Imhotep Fadiyu. In fact, he just released a book called Scientific Pan-Africanism, which I think is a must-have. I wrote the foreword in the book. I wrote the foreword. Baba Mwalimu Baruti wrote the introduction. And so that's a good reference. So you have that. For young boys, I would recommend reading books by like Dr. Naeem Akbar. He has a beautiful book called Vision for Black Men. Baba Imhotep Fadiyu has a book called African Manhood in the 21st Century. Dr. Amos Wilson has a book called Manhood in Black and White, and so for young boys, I think those are great resources. For young girls, you have a book called Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. You also have another book called African Womanhood in the 21st Century by Mama Gina Fatiou. So I think those are great tools for young girls. Just learning and getting started with learning your African history. I would say definitely Tony Browder from the Browder File is a great resource. His Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, that's a great resource. If you're someone who's trying to understand African-centered education, I would say read the work of Nana Kwame Nkrumah. He has a book called Nation Building, African Theory and Practice, African-Centered Education Theory and Practice. Great book for parents to understand what African-centered education is and how do you educate children. Another great book to read if you are a parent is The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child by Dr. Amos Wilson. So if we want to cultivate our children in such a way that if we want to optimize, I'll say, the development of our children, then we got to know how they develop. So that's a great book, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. I'm trying to think. And Blueprint for Black Power. Definitely Blueprint for Black Power. Great reference. Great book. I reference it all the time. Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson. And like I said, it's so many. It's so many. It's so many. References.
You definitely gave the family a lot to chew on just with what you said. So, we appreciate that.
And now that you know a little more about Dr. Maat, support Dr. Maat on all social media platforms. Go over to the Meltrek website and purchase those items. And also check the Asafo and Agoiie camps for the children. Mm-hmm. Don't meet us there. Beat us there.
You want to say that one more time?
Yeah, don't meet us there. Beat us there.
How about one more time for the family? way in the back.
Do not meet us there. You gotta beat us there, family.
That's right.
Don't take our word for none of this information we provided today. Do your research. And Dr. Maat,
Yes.
I want to give you the last final word. What do you want to say to the family?
I just want to say to the family, be encouraged, be encouraged, be encouraged. I know right now in this climate, that you can easily become discouraged, right? You know, just hearing about a lot of things on social media, seeing what's going on, and I'm talking about the political climate, the economic climate. You're hearing people getting laid off. You're hearing about what these politicians are doing. You know, we're seeing some dysfunction within the culture, and so I just want to say to the listening audience to just stay the course, right? Stay the course and be encouraged. So a lot of things are happening around us and to us. In fact, before the show started, you know, I was when Baba Asar asked me, he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing okay." I said, "I could complain, but I won't complain." And I said, "I'm doing all right despite the challenges." And so what I want to say to the people who are viewing this, stay the course and be encouraged despite what's going on in the world. Stay the course and be encouraged. Ashe.
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 Okay, so family, I want to say thanks for sticking with us on the podcast today. I want to take a moment to talk to you all from my heart about something really important that we learned from Dr. Maat. So come in closer. Just a little closer. Just a teeny bit closer. Did you know that history isn't just a bunch of facts from a long time ago? It's like a treasure chest full of stories that show us who we are and what we're capable of. But here's the thing. Sometimes the history we learn in school doesn't always tell the whole story. When that happens, we can lose pieces of ourselves, pieces that remind us how powerful and amazing we really are. Dr. Maat talked about how Black history is full of incredible people and achievements, from the great kingdoms in Africa to inventors and leaders right here in the United States. These stories that don't always get told, but it should be, because they teach us that we come from greatness, of ancestors who dreamed big, fought hard, and made the world a better place. So all my followers out there, let's promise to keep learning, keep sharing, and keep being proud of who we are. Because when we know the truth about our history, there's no limit to how far we can go. I feel like I've learned so much about how young leaders like myself can make a difference, even here in Iowa, where there aren't as many of people who look like us. I understand correctly, it's not about how big the crowd is, it's how big our hearts and our actions are. Creativity, teamwork, and staying true to who we are can help us inspire each other and the world around us. Dr. Maat, for your information, my name Reya'Sekhmet comes by Zria, which means a connection to Ra or Ray, symbolizing light, guidance, and wisdom, and Sekhmet, the nature of war, defense, protection, and healing. Together, Reya'Sekhmet represents a very powerful blend of all those things.
Ashe.
Ashe. There you have it, family. Until next time, please absolutely devour, crush, and smash that like button and subscribe.
Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and love is the key. Peace and love is the key. Ra represents the essence of truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, and management, which is prosperity and righteousness.
J&J-Life podcast.
The J&J-Life podcast was created to give the family a place and platform to embrace their spiritual awakening and consciousness. J&J-Life is dedicated to showcasing the beauty of our culture, educating our people and those that want to learn this work. Smash that like button. Peace and love is Nikki.